Hello and welcome to CheapSkate. I'm Cameron, and yes, this is the timber. This is American maple. It's 50 millimeters deep by about 266 wide, so that's about 2 inches by almost 10.5 inches, I think. It's quite long too. It's about 1.2 meters long. This is actually a very long one that I had cut in half because I couldn't fit it in my ute. So I've got another piece like this. Not bad figuring on top, which could be good for the body, but we're going to cut a neck out of this. Now, it's flat sawn, so the grain is running this way across the end, and 50 mils isn't wide enough for a neck, so I'm going to cut about 65 mils off. And if you imagine that this end here is where the fretboard sits, that's how I'm going to use it. So it will be quarter sawn as far as the neck is concerned, which gives greater strength. But 50 mils isn't wide enough. It's wide enough at the nut, but it's not wide enough at the pickup end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to laminate it. So I'm going to cut a piece off now, then we're going to cut it in half, and I'm going to put a lamination in there, which at this stage is going to be spotted gum, and that will give us the extra width we need, plus give it more strength with the lamination. So that is the idea. I'm going to get in and cut it now. So there's a big channel where the saw didn't line up. Essentially, when I pushed the first end through, this part here is flat, and then it's got a ridge here in the middle and a big ridge at the end. So when I first pushed it through, it just started to move out away from the fence. Feeling much smoother now when I go over it. That's what I want. I want to hear that sound when it's gripping everywhere. A little bit of a high point just here now. I mean, it's just a tiny bit. Some decent shavings now anyway. Thought I might just show my technique for using the sanding board. It's too thick on this side most of the way along until it gets to about here, then it's about the same thickness both sides, but it's thick from here right through on this side. This board also has a bit of a bulge in the whole centre line here, which I'll have to get rid of later, but I want to get rid of this unevenness first. I've been giving this side a really good sand, so I'm going to say that's flat. I'm going to work on this. So the way I'm doing it, it's going about halfway through on here, but I've angled it so from here back, from about here back is not even touching the paper at all, and then it sort of just cuts in on an angle like this through. So I've got angled on there, down to this. So it's about from 1 mil to 2 mils too thick on this side. That's why I'm doing it so aggressively. Alright, I finally have my timber ready to make my neck blank. I had a lot of trouble. I've made 4 of these maple boards. They took me 3 hours each to cut and plane and get them flat. Had a lot of trouble. Both of these ended up coming off the second one I did. I've got 2 other pieces that came off the first cut I did, and that just really sprang out badly, and one of the boards ended up being only about, I think, 14 mils thick, because it was 24 mils thick. But I had to take about a third of the timber off to get it straight, because it was so curved it just sprang right out. So I've got these 2 now. Both these came off the second one. They are quite straight now, flat. They're looking good, and I've just now cut this one, which is my spotted gum, and I've just planed that as well. I have to say, actually I'll bring you closer and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So what I want to show you here is this is the maple, American maple, and it's quite smooth. I had a little bit of, not really tear out, it's pretty good. Didn't have much tear out, had the odd bit, if the blade got blunt. And I've got a tiny bit of tear out just here, but you can see it's where there's obviously been, we're not far from where there was a knot or something here. Different story though with the spotted gum. It was actually beautiful to plane until you hit a rough spot. So here, this feels beautiful and smooth. Then here, once again, we're not too far from where there once would have been probably a branch coming out of this or some sort of a knot. And here you can really, I think it's quite visible. It's quite visible to me. Hopefully you can see it too. Got a lot of tear out there, and I've got a fair bit of tear out up the end here as well. This side was good, beautiful and smooth. You can see a lot of colour variation in this timber, but here, just massive, massive, massive tear out. And the funny thing was, on this spotted gum, you would go over it and it would feel smooth. It didn't, sometimes it jammed, but a lot of time it didn't really jam. It just went straight over. It felt like it was all smooth, but it just ripped timber out. So we're going to be gluing these together, and hopefully it won't be too much of a problem. Particularly if the spotted gum is going in the middle. They're fitting together like this. I mucked around them just to see which way they would fit together the best, and then I marked them. So this is a good idea if you've never done this before, if you've never built a guitar and made a neck blank. I think you can see here I've got a numbering system. So I've gone 1, 2, 3, and I've drawn a line across. So I know that this is the way up. I've got them. This is the order I want them in. And yeah, I've checked them, and if I get them all the same level, which is going to be a little bit hard to do, and give them a little bit of a squeeze, they all fit together without gaps quite nicely. So that's going to be the neck blank. Bunch of clamps ready to go. I've got these 2 just spring clamps here, which I'm going to put on first, because the boards, once they get glued on, they tend to slide around, so I'm using those just to sort of hold them while I can still manoeuvre them a little bit before I put the heavier clamps on. And I've got the boards in the order I want. They're numbered, so I know where the glue is going to go, and we can get started. Right, we have a blank. I'm just going to do a bit of planing, try and flatten this out now. So originally I thought spotted gum was amazingly good to work with, but I've changed my mind. When planing, unless you get exactly the right bit of grain, like it's going exactly the right direction, it just tears out. So you can see here the maple right next to it, nice and smooth like silk, and this stuff just all torn out. But here it's just everywhere. I've tried both different, coming from different sides, and it doesn't matter, just tears it right up. So it makes it very hard to level, so I'm going to have to sand it. Planing it, once I'll get it close to the plane, then I'm going to have to sand it. So I've got this almost flat, but I noticed that here I've got this pencil mark. I've got a high spot, but it's only on the spotted gum, and the same here, there's another high spot here. It seems that the gum doesn't cut as easily as the maple. I've turned down the volume of the bandsaw because it's pretty annoying doing a bit of a voiceover. So there's problems with this bandsaw, some of which I've now fixed. There was a big lump under the tyre of one of the wheels on the bandsaw which caused the blade to wobble. I've now fixed that and I have a video on fixing that. Also, the table of this bandsaw, the line is towards the user, and on this one the table on each side of the line that you put the blade through is a different height. It's been damaged at some stage, and so it's very hard to keep the timber flat because it depends on which side of that line the timber is resting on. You can see now it's starting to lift off on one side, so that caused the cut to come out uneven, and the cut was very rough because of that lump on the wheel. Anyway, I guess we'll go back to normal audio now. I couldn't even get it straight there. I mean, it looks relatively uniform, I guess. My line, and you can see that I've gone slightly past the line over here and not past the line here. It looks like this spot here, which is about in line with the line, is about where it should have been. I'll probably have to take the whole thing to here now. Okay. Nice and smooth here, but still rough, very rough here. Nearly gone. Okay, that's flat now. It's looking, take these earplugs out and I can hear myself talk. it's looking pretty flat. The glue join looks fantastic. Really happy with the join. No gaps there at all. I'm not sure if it's possible that I'm sloping, like, you know, I could be sloping like this way or that way with it a little bit. If it is, it's not very much, and it only affects aesthetics anyway. It won't affect any performance of the guitar at all. You could actually angle it deliberately, would be a cool effect. I'm thinking about actually doing on a guitar at some stage. There's the line of around about the thickness I wanted the headstock to be. That since I sand a fair bit back, I may have to make that a little thicker now. But yeah, I'm a bit disappointed that I ended up going so far up here. I probably, when I did my original cut, if I do another guitar, say if I want it to end there, well then I should cut to say about here somewhere, and then because the sanding will bring it down. Didn't think of that. This offcut, I just sanded it back a bit. So that's had a 400 grit on it now. Feels very smooth. And I just thought it's got a bit of sawdust, whatchamacallit? Yeah, sawdust in the grain. So I thought I might just hit it with some linseed oil and see how it comes up. So yeah, the neck will be probably linseed oil. I don't know how good you can see it there. The spotted gum in the middle does look kind of a little bit grainy, whereas the maple looks like a very smooth timber. So that's what it looks like without any coating on it, or similar. That's not the 400 grit, but it's got a few nicks in it. But anyway, but on this side, that's once it's coated. So it does definitely darken the maple, and it makes it go a bit yellow, which I don't like. One of the reasons why I don't like coatings is they turn things a bit yellow, and that's why I think the poly is good, because it doesn't really change the colour. The poly's kind of clear. I hope there's enough light in here for you to see what's going on. So this is the headstock. Part of the issue I have, actually I'll show you my prototype. So this is the prototype I'm putting on top here. You can see the headstock is a similar width. The new one might be slightly wider by a couple of millimeters. I hang up all my guitars, and I really like hanging them up because you can just get access to them really quick, and it's off the floor where my dog won't try and chew them or anything. So it just was kind of on the edge of the holder, and I'm kind of a bit worried if it got knocked and rocked, it might sort of slip off. So I just want to make the headstock a little bit wider because of that. So to that end, I've thought about adding another piece of the spotted gum just onto the side here. Something like that. Actually, that's, yeah. Can you see that? Yeah, that's better. So something like that. Now, my issue is, now that I've done it, I think it looks too wide now. Once I narrow the neck down there, it's going to come in here. I'll curve it in. It'll look a little bit too... It would be alright with normal keys, but this isn't going to be normal keys. I've got gearless tuners, Steinbeckers, which don't take up much room, which is why I'm actually able to have a slim headstock. But I just want it to be a little bit thicker. So I think if both these pieces were half as thick as they are now, it would be good. So what I'm actually going to do is just go on the bandsaw, cut one of these in half, and then sand it and see what it looks like. I just thought I'd show you this. So those two smaller pieces I spoke about, cut it in half, it went well. They're too small to hold though, because you need to get your fingers on the side because things spin so fast. If you just push it down on top, it just slides off. So I did the luthiers trick and stuck one down to one side of this, one down to the other side. We have done these two bits. They are both about 3mm wide. They're the same and they're fairly flat, fairly straight. So if I put, oh actually I have to have this off the edge, can you still see it? And get it fairly straight so you can see it. Are these kind of level? Yeah. Now that's kind of more what I was looking for. I don't know what you think, but I think that looks much better. Just with that thin piece on the edge. And so the sides you will see that timber, and then from here it'll look like that. So the maple is still very prominent and it's not sort of hiding the maple, but it's just like, I guess it's a bit like when you put trim on your fretboard, binding or something. It almost looks like binding. So Centurion, I have woofed up the grain here with a bit of 80 grit, and on the sides of this with a bit of 80 grit as well, just to make sure they're nice and rough. So that we've got plenty of grip because it's not a large surface area. And obviously this is thicker than the neck is, than the headstock is going to be. That's because I want to ensure that when I cut it, it's got plenty of adhesion, so I don't, it doesn't like fling off or peel off or something, or if the router hits it, it doesn't just sort of break off where the glue was. So here it is, just taken the clamps off, bright sunlight out here. Now I don't know if you can see it, but these bits here still looks quite patchy. There's lots of sort of dust. See if I get the angle. Sometimes it's easier to see an angle. It's sort of these dusty patches. I try not to move too quick because I'm probably moving through an angle where you can see it in a way. Anyway, it's because the grain is popping up. It feels actually very, very flat. Doesn't feel rough at all. So I'm hoping when I get to the finer sandpaper that'll go away, and then I know it'll go away once I hit it with a coating like an oil, linseed oil or poly or something. It'll go away then because that'll fill it in. But yeah, it's one of the things of its timber. If you're not going to finish it, I think you need to finish it. So we glued this on with it sticking up a little bit so I could sand it down because I just didn't want it to be lower than this, like sometimes timber slips with the glue. And it looks like this end may have actually slipped a little bit, so looks like it was a good decision to have it sitting proud. It is still proud, but at this end it's only, just here, it's only just proud. That concludes our first episode in the Skeggs body shaped guitar. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, subscribe to CheapSkate, And you may have noticed the truss rod made an appearance in that episode. I actually do the install of it, will be in the next episode. Thanks for watching.